Hello, welcome to a new episode of Talk Turkey.
Hi, Nevşin. Following our last episode on Russia, you traveled to Ukraine, actually. We won't talk about Ukraine today, but it's great to see you back safe and sound.
Thank you. It was a brief, I was there briefly. I hope to go there for a longer period of time in the future to, cover more extensively what's happening. Hopefully, maybe post-war.
Hopefully.
Yeah, but we'll talk about Turkish opposition again in our video because a lot is happening in the opposition, right?
Yeah. I mean, they do a lot to unite, to act together. I think they've already understood the fact that they can only succeed if they're together. So today we'll talk about their joint declaration, actually, about the future of democracy in Turkey and their plans to go back to the parliamentary democracy. So maybe very briefly, 6 opposition parties, actually, they've been working on this for a long time. It is a plan to restore democracy in Turkey by bringing back the parliamentary system. And what they call it is a strengthened parliamentary system, meaning they don't want to go back to the old system, actually, but they would like to bring a better, more democratic version of it. This is rather unique, actually, in the history of Turkish politics. We are not used to see parties coming together, cooperating, signing joint declarations, which requires cooperation actually beyond short term. And this is probably one of very few positive consequences of the current political environment in Turkey. Maybe in a very strange way, the developments in Turkey in the last 10 years have educated probably political parties and opposition leaders in Turkey about democracy and the significance of working together by leaving behind differences and focusing on common values, common goals. And we talk about actually 6 political parties. They are very different. Actually, the AKP.
Here are the leaders signing the declaration, by the way.
Yes, 6 parties. You see their logos and their leaders signing. And actually, AKP has always been criticizing that, all these parties, they don't even look like each other. They come together. But it's also one of the characteristics of, fundamental characteristics of democracy, what we call in the European Union, united in diversity. But it's true. I mean, these 6 political parties, actually, they are very different. Maybe very briefly, I can just talk about those 6 parties, and then you can tell us more about what their plan is, because you actually attended their meeting and this ceremony where they declared their plan. So the biggest party, I guess we can start with the CHP, Republican People's Party. It is the main opposition party. It's a secular center-left party in Turkey. And the leader, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, actually was criticized a lot in the past. But in the last few years, he has become the #1 actor in opposition alliances by playing a rather constructive role. President Erdogan calls him by Kemal, Mr. Kemal, in a dismissive way, but I think Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu has been doing quite well to change the game plan of the AKP in the last few years. He's also taking a lot of risks within his party by taking courageous steps and changing the traditional policy line of CHP. Pro-Kurdish HDP is not among those parties in the opposition alliance, but CHP is also playing a key role keeping the dialogue channels open with the HDP. And Kılıçdaroğlu was also in Diyarbakır, actually, recently, and some of his messages were rather courageous, to say the least. And then the second party is E Party, in English, Good Party. It's the second biggest opposition party in Turkey. It's not easy to position it politically, but I guess we can call it central-right secular with some nationalist and some liberal tendencies, quite a mix. Party's leader is Meral Akşener. She also played a key role in changing political balances against government by establishing E-Party. She's de facto leader of actually the opposition alliance together with Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. She's certainly very influential in setting the agenda in Turkey. And her role was rather important also in opposition's victory in the municipal elections. Third party is DEVA, Democracy and Progress Party. It's one of the AKP breakaway parties. And DEVA tries to position itself as a central right liberal party. The leader is Ali Babacan, former economy minister. He's quite well known in Europe too. And his time as economy minister were also golden years of AKP in terms of economic growth. And that's his success story, that at least that's the success story he tries to sell. I think he was expecting to attract more AKP voters, but he couldn't manage this yet. The party is around 2-3%, but of course, everything is relative. Under these conditions, this is rather important. Fourth party is Gelecek, the future party in English. It's another actually AKP breakaway party, and they are more conservative compared to Babacan's party, though. The leader is former Prime Minister, Foreign Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu, and I think he has changed a lot in terms of his political line in the last few years, because he had these neo-Ottoman dreams, actually. And unfortunately, those dreams turn into a nightmare in Syria, especially. And that's why he's not very popular among opposition voters, but still the small vote of Gelecek, probably around 1%, is rather important for the opposition. Fifth party is Saadet, in English, Felicity Party. This is actually a very small, traditional Islamist party. And they come from the same roots with AKP. But in a very unexpected way, its leader, Temel Karamollaoğlu, has become quite popular even among secular young people with its modest approach and strong position against AKP. Probably this is the most different one among all the colorful alliance parties. They are also very active, actually, on social media campaigns through videos and animations. And then lastly, the sixth party is Democrat Party. It is also the smallest one with a very limited potential. His leader is Gültekin Uysal. I guess even many people in Turkey, they don't even know his name. Its position in the alliance is more symbolic due to its name and its historical roots in the central right. So, I mean, you attended the event. It was a large event organized to sign this declaration. So what was the general mood, and what are the details of their plan on strengthened parliamentary system?
Yes, I had a video of 10 seconds. I'm trying to show that video to show the mood a little bit. Nah, it cannot. It was working before, but anyways, so yeah, as you can see, it's written here. So the slogan was like, "For tomorrow's Turkey." That was the slogan. And what's interesting is that in this meeting, none of the leaders gave a speech. They did not say anything. They just signed the common declaration. But rather than that, so there was from every party, there was one person, like a chairperson was assigned to work on this, common declaration. They came up from each party and they spoke equally in equal terms and an equal time, about 5 minutes, I think. 5-10 minutes. They all spoke about, like, they were all given one concept. One is, say, legislation. One is judiciary, for example. They explained what sort of a vision they have for that. And yes, I mean, most of the NGOs were invited. Most of the journalists all over the Turkey were invited, and I was there as a good journalist, trying to get the atmosphere and everything. Wow, I could say that the morale is very high among the opposition. All the opposition MPs, especially CHP, they were like smiling. There were smiles on their faces. They were happy. They came up with everything. It was an achievement, and they were like, the mood was like most of these people, they were like, you know what? It's going to change in 2023 when Turkey has elections. It's going to change. The AK Party is finished. There's going to be a post-Erdogan period, and we're going to be the ones building a new Turkey post-Erdogan period. That was the mood. I don't know if it's realistic, but I could say that they're kind of pumped up in that sense. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. I think it depends where you look at the situation. It might be good having the morale. So because once the members of these parties are believing that they're going to seize the power after Erdogan, they're willing to work. They are willing to work more for a more secure election. and more just election in that sense. That's also important. But on the other hand, maybe if they believe too much that they're going to win anyways, this might also backfire, because Erdogan is, as we always say, a political animal, and he'll do anything to win. We're going to come to that in a second, maybe. He did a spin, actually. He changed. He's going to change. I mean, AK Party and MHP, they came together. They worked on a new law, a new electoral system. So they came up with that. So when, the opposition has their own play, but always the AK Party and MHP, they have their own play also. So they're not giving up the fight. So it's kind of fierce in Turkey a lot. But before going to this electoral system, do you want to say, a few words about the foreign policy? I'd say, I think, most of our viewers are maybe curious about that. We know AK Party. I mean, actually, we don't know AK Party's and MHP's foreign policy, because they tend to change their mind a lot. And probably that's, the problem with them, because they say something one day, they have an ideal the other day, they have totally different ideal the next day. You never know. It depends. But how about the new parties? If they really seize the power, what sort of a Turkish foreign policy are we going to see?
Yeah, maybe just to clarify one point for the viewers. I mean, the 6 parties, they are together for this plan of strengthened parliamentary system, but it's not even an electoral alliance yet, right? Because there is this Millet Alliance, Nation Alliance, and CHP there, E-Party is there, Saadet used to be there, but we don't even talk about an electoral alliance yet. So do you think those parties will be running together? Are we talking about an alliance too, or?
Might not be. I mean, they're going to have to strategize again because of this new electoral law. So we'll see about
that. We'll come to that then. I mean, for the foreign policy, they don't seem to have a common vision. I mean, focus is, as you also briefly described, is domestic, changing domestic policy, going back to democratization. However, objectives they mention obviously require reforms, and this may indirectly energize also the relations with the West, and especially with the European Union. Generally speaking, majority of these parties are publicly in favor of Turkey's EU accession, maybe except Saadet. It's an old school Islamist party, so it's very skeptical, I guess, towards the EU, NATO, West in general. But the other parties are in favor of the EU accession. They are positive towards NATO. And probably 2 biggest parties, CHP, E-Party, and DEVA, they clearly state actually that they see the EU standards as a target for issues such as freedom of speech. And CHP's leader, Kılıçdaroğlu, he meets ambassadors of the EU member states regularly. There is also a good dialogue between Ankara and Istanbul mayors and the European Union. And as the position on Russia, their position is not very clear, as we discussed in the last episode. But something has changed in since the last episode. That's the position of E-Party. Now, E-Party's Akşener has a very strong, actually, position against Russia. I'm quoting her. She said that I'm respectfully saluting the brave sons of Ukraine and supporting them in their struggle for freedom. And this is rather strong. And she was even talking about how this fight against Russia is actually similar to the Turkey's fight 100 years ago for independence. And she criticizes also the government's relations with Russia. We should note that both E-Party and CHP, they also have a very critical position against China too. They clearly and openly support Uyghur movements. But in general, I think foreign policy is not seen as a priority for the opposition parties in Turkey. I mean, if they claim that they'll be ruling Turkey next year, they better make their positions clearer. But probably this alliance will not have a common position for foreign policy. But stronger elements within alliance, CHP, E, and DEVA, they seem to have similar positions, so it can be easier for them to agree. But we can probably discuss the details regarding opposition's foreign policy as also a separate episode.
Exactly,
Now,
but I think they're
yeah,
just distancing themselves with all these foreign policy issues knowingly, especially CHP, because they're afraid by being labeled by the AK Party and MHP as working with the foreign powers, working for the foreign powers, and this and that. This narrative sells in Turkey, so
yeah.
I think
But
that's
for me
why
personally, it's not really like credible in 2022, and especially that, I mean, I don't know, AKP has a representation office in Brussels. AKP delegations are coming to Brussels. They keep having new meetings almost every week. And then the opposition parties are even afraid of traveling to Brussels because they can be accused by AKP. I mean, also, if they really want to rule the country, maybe they should be also a bit more courageous in that sense.
I totally agree. I do agree. Yeah, there is that. I mean, maybe it's time we talk about this new electoral law, if you like, Murat, because
Yeah, yeah. You've
everybody.
been following it actually more closely. I know also in your
Yeah,
daily
I have
show.
to.
So
Unfortunately,
maybe
I
you
have
can tell us a bit more about it and what are the highlights? Could they really, I
to.
mean, fundamentally change
Sure.
the opposition's game plan?
Yeah, it is very complicated with technical details and this and that. Since I'm not the expert, I'm not going to get into these technical details. But the thing is, so basically, Turkey uses the Dehont system to distribute the votes. You get the election, and afterwards, how you distribute the votes is a technique, and it's the Dehont system. So it actually worked. This system worked for the favor of the opposition for smaller parties last time. And in 2018, a new law was introduced, and alliances were introduced. Actually, before that, there were no alliances. There wasn't this system. Back then, AK Party thought, well, since AK Party's line of thinking was all these opposition parties are very different from each other, so they cannot form an alliance. But we're going to form an alliance with MHP. They'll not be able to form an alliance, so we're going to have the advantage. But it kind of backfired. The system changed back then, and the opposition had been able to come together and form an alliance, so it kind of backfired. And now people are wondering, can this electoral system backfire too? So I was explaining what is going to happen is basically that in terms of districts, every electoral district up until now, I mean, if this law passes, it'll pass because AK Party and MHP have the necessary majority in the parliament. Basically, in every district, people vote and votes are distributed, and there's this excess proportion. It used to go to the biggest party of the alliance in that system. Now, with this change, basically, it's going to be harder for smaller parties to get their MPs in the parliament if they're in the alliance, something like that. So what basically is happening is, the ABC of this is the government is trying to prevent the opposition from forming the alliance, because with this change, if smaller parties, if they stay in the alliance, it's going to be harder for them to have MPs in the parliament. So they might try to, play on their own. Maybe Deva and Gelecek Partisi might say it's better if we don't stay in the alliance, if we don't join the alliance, but try to pass the threshold. The threshold is lowered to 7%. Probably that is also to divide the opposition alliance. They lower the threshold to encourage a little bit this Deva Partisi and Gelecek Partisi, who are not officially in the opposition alliance but working with them. So the calculation goes to that, basically. Maybe Deva and Gelecek, these two can come together somehow. They can pass the 7% threshold or try to, and then stay out of this opposition alliance. So this is one aspect of it. More important aspect about the security of the elections. So up until now, basically, ballot boxes are checked by the local judges, in a sense. So up until now, whoever was the highest judge, they would be the head of they would be the checker of the ballot boxes automatically. Now with the system change, basically, they're going to be selected randomly from a group of judges. So the opposition, I mean, not the opposition, but the experts are saying this is kind of dangerous, because especially after 15th of July, a lot of new judges were came to the judicial system. But most of them are actually are AK Party supporters, because judiciary is not, unfortunately, wholly free in the Turkish system right now. So most of them are close to AK Party. So these new judges, they could be the ones responsible from the ballot boxes. This might be also a game changer. But when I was there in Ankara talking to the representatives of the opposition, they were saying, all 6 of them were coming together and working for the security of the elections. They have their own plan too. They have been working on this. They were looking of how to implement the Istanbul model to whole Turkey. Basically, they have their own studies about that, so they're working on that too. But AK Party and MHP, they're not giving up. Yes, they don't have as much as votes as they used to have as AK Party, especially like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Far from that. You're going to elaborate on that a little bit more. But then what they are doing is, like, if they cannot get as much votes as possible, then they change the system. This is what they do, briefly.
Yeah, but I mean also about this, specifically about the electoral system change. I mean, I think the ball is still in the opposition's courts. It has always been clear that AKP will not easily just give up, and they will still need to be, from the opposition side, act together, and they need to be a bit creative. So I think my position regarding this has not changed. If the opposition parties do the right things, they still have a very good chance. Second point, such political engineering efforts may also backfire. I mean, the last example in Turkish political history is the rerun of Istanbul elections. If public opinion perceives it as an unfair change, then this may also backfire. And the third thing, these changes are mostly about the parliamentary elections, except the last point you mentioned. They don't do much, actually, for the presidential elections, where Erdogan still needs 50% plus 1. And this is still very challenging, I think, under current conditions, which we will probably discuss now.
True.
Because,
exactly.
I mean, economy is still the #1 issue. We keep repeating this, but it is the reality. Inflation continues to rise. High energy prices create big challenge, especially for low and middle income families. And it's very difficult, I think, for the governing alliance to recover under these conditions. We should also discuss, I mean, potential consequences of Ukraine crisis, the Turkish economy. We discussed a little bit last time. And the current balance seems to be in favor of the opposition. Maybe we can discuss this by also showing
Sure.
one of the polls as well.
Yeah.
Here's the
This
one from
Yeah.
Metropole. Yes. I mean, if you see the AKP plus its partner MHP, we see in total less than 40%, and the entire opposition actually is even more than 60%. There's a huge, actually, difference. Under normal conditions, probably one could even claim that there's no chance for the AKP's alliance, but obviously they are not giving up, and they will try everything to win the elections. But things don't seem to be going very well. I mean, for them, it is more in the hands of the opposition. If they played well, they seem to have a good chance. Do you agree?
Yeah, Oğuzkan Salıcı, one of the CHP MPs, one of the influential ones, after this law was introduced, he said, well, it doesn't matter, whatever, we're going to win the election. It doesn't matter. We're going to strategize again. Who cares? So this is the first reaction, but we're going to see what they're going to do. I mean, they have their own calculations also. But as you said, I mean, in the polls, basically, they're losing presidential, but it's going to depend on who is going to be the opposition's candidate. Also, it kind of depends on that too. It looks like Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu is going to run. Actually, let me show him. Head of CHP. There was an article about him in The Economist, the magazine, and he was shown as the probably who's going to be Erdogan's challenger in the upcoming elections. I don't know. He might be. He acts like he's going to be. But in that case, he's not as popular as, say, Ekrem İmamoğlu, for example, the mayor of Istanbul, or mayor of Ankara, Mansur Yavaş. But things change. There is a lot of time since until the elections 2023. So we're going to see. And there is this other also poll, this one from Turkey Raporu, right? This is also kind of parallel, I think.
It is parallel. I think the governing alliance is a bit higher here, maybe 2 or 3 points, but in general they are quite similar to each other. So it shows the general trend. And I guess also for the candidate for president, we may also see some surprises, because in any case, those 6 parties, and even beyond them, probably also indirectly in coordination with HDP, they will be discussing all these candidates, because they will need all these parties. So it won't be really the only decision of Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. So we may still see some surprises in that sense.
True.
And that also makes sense that there is no candidate yet, because if there is one, AKP from the day one will just start to attack that candidate.
Exactly.
So it doesn't make sense to start the fight too early.
Yeah, that's what they say. They're saying basically, when there are elections officially, when it's announced the date, then we're going to reveal who our candidate is. But right now, there's no point. So they're kind of keeping it secret. And I think, the government is also wondering who their candidate is going to be. Even they wonder more than we wonder, I'd say. They're trying to find out. And when you look at like all these pro-government TV channels in Turkey, they discuss this like every night in their debates on TV, like who's going to be the candidate, why. And
it shows that they are quite desperate about it, actually.
Yeah, they are desperate about it. And actually, they usually target Istanbul's mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, like trying to, bring up stories about him and this and that, like trying to show that he cannot, really govern Istanbul and this and that. So he's one of the targets, basically. I mean, but we'll see. But basically, the hottest topic in Turkey was this electoral law, and it's being discussed. And yeah, that's the major issue.
Yeah, but probably we'll see some other attempts, both from the government side, but from the opposition side in the coming weeks and months. So we'll continue to discuss all those issues.
Exactly. So we'll see each other and our viewers in the next episode of Talk Turkey.
Yes. Bye. See you then.